Good morning children and welcome back to the digital classroom of Vikram Juneja. In my previous two videos, I taught you the word-by-word explanation of a horse and two goats. In today's video, I'm going to conclude a horse and two goats. We will talk about the summary of a horse and two goats. We'll also discuss the theme and title justification of the story. At the end of today's video, you'll find an extract followed by some questions. Kindly attempt those questions in your fair literature and English notebooks. The storyline plot summary: A Horse and Two Goats. The short story A Horse and Two Goats by R.K. Narayan is set in a fictional small Tamil village named Kritam, where the protagonist of the story Muni lives. The village consists of less than 30 houses, mostly made of bamboo thatch, straw and mud. Only one house, called the Big House, the house of the village chief, is made of brick and cement. Once upon a time, Muni owned a herd of 40 sheep and goats, but it's now reduced to just 2 goats. On the day of the story, Muni takes his usual breakfast of a handful of millet flour and then shakes down drumsticks from the tree in front of his house. When Muni expresses his wish for a drumstick sauce, his wife asks him to bring groceries like dal, spices, oil and potato. He goes to the village shop and makes all efforts to get these things in credit but fails. He comes back home to be humiliated further by his wife and takes the 2 goats and goes to a place in the outskirts of the village beside the highway to graze his goats. Muni sits under the clay horse statue where he usually sits to protect himself from the sun and watches the trucks. That day, he sees a yellow station wagon approaching. The wagon comes and stops in front of the statue. A red-faced American dressed in khaki gets out of the wagon and asks in English about the nearest gas station. As the American notices the horse statue, he gets fascinated by it and starts a discussion with Muni. He offers Muni cigarettes and carries on with the funny conversations where the two of them do not understand each other. Muni speaking in Tamil and the American in English. First, Muni assumes that the American to be a policeman or a soldier and tries to defend himself by saying that he is not involved in the crime that has happened in the nearby village. Then, as he finds the American to be friendly by his gestures, he carries on telling his story. Muni ends up telling the stranger how cheetahs or jackals sometimes carry their cattle off. He also tells him that he never went to school, as in those days only Brahmins went to schools. He narrates how the temple priest can see in the camphor flame the face of the thief, and how at the end of the Kali Yuga the world will be destroyed and the clay horse will come to life and trample down all bad men. Muni also expresses his grudge for the village chief who has gathered a lot of money. The American also tells his own story of he being a businessman dealing in coffee and how one day he was forced to work for 4 hours in his office when there was no electricity or elevators. This incident made him curious to look at other civilizations. So he has come to India to see how people live here. He further adds that his wife has stayed back in Srinagar. Thinking Muni to be the owner of the horse statue, the American offers a 100 rupee note to buy it. Realizing that some financial element has entered the talk, Muni thinks that the man wants to buy his goats. In fact, he has always dreamt of selling his goats at a good price and setting up a small shop with money someday. Muni is happy that he has sold his goat for 100 rupees and the American is happy that he has bought the horse statue. Muni comes back home to show the money to his wife. She does not believe that he has sold the goats for such a hefty price. She accuses Muni of theft. Her belief of Muni stealing the money gets even stronger when the 2 goats return home just afterwards. A Horse and Two Goats, title justification. The short story A Horse and Two Goats was written by R.K. Narayan. In the story The Horse and Two Goats, the author narrates the story of a shepherd who misunderstands the communication between him and the foreigner who spoke in English. There was a statue of the horse which is considered to be Kalki Avatar. The foreigner wanted to buy that statue and communicated the same to the shepherd in English. But the shepherd didn't know English and misunderstood that he wished to buy his 2 goats. So he got money from him. As the story revolves around the horse's statue and the 2 goats, A Horse and Two Goats is an apt title. A Horse and Two Goats theme. There are 3 main themes in R.K. Narayan's short story A Horse and Two Goats. Those are the theme of cultural clash between East and West, the theme of poverty and wealth, and finally the theme of knowledge and wisdom. The story presents the 2 characters, Muni and the American, 2 men with totally different social and cultural identity to show the cultural clash between the East and the West. They are different in every aspect of day-to-day life. He also depicts their difference in terms of relative wealth. One leads an affluent life while the other barely earns a living to survive. Again, the American is well educated and enjoys full benefit of that, while Muni has no formal education and is ignorant of the outer world. Moreover, there are minor themes like caste system and suppression of upper classes, superstition, and so on. Critical appreciation of A Horse and Two Goats. A Horse and Two Goats is a short story written by R.K. Narayan. In this story, the author clearly portrays the significance of communication and language. The British man assumed that horse belonged to that village man and thought of buying it from him. He gave 100 rupees after communicating this to the village man. But he misunderstood that the British man is interested in buying these 2 goats, and that's why he had given him 100 rupees. He couldn't understand English properly, and just by his assumption, he concluded. This incident shows the need of learning a language and culture of a country before stepping into the country. The man who lives in a country also should be familiar of other languages to guide the visitors properly. Thus, the author humorously portrays the importance and the need of communication. So children, this was with regard to the story A Horse and Two Goats. I hope you have understood it. In our next interactive class, I would want you to actually raise your doubts, if any, with regard to the story. I have attached an extract with a few questions. After the extract, I would expect you to attempt this extract in your fair literature and English notebooks. Thank you. Have a nice day. Stay safe. God bless you all.